Okay, welcome and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today and present my interpretation of next generation e-commerce packaging. So before we move into the solutions and into more detail, it's important to understand where we have come from and how do we arrive at the solutions we have today, and then why they may not be the right ones for the future. So where did it all begin? And you may ask a question of why there's a gentleman in a top hat on the slide as well. Well, the corrugated board that we use today in e-commerce packaging, the actual flute profile, the wavy bit in the middle, was created in the 1800s, and it was actually created for top hats. And then you may ask, how does that kind of have a significance to e-commerce and today? Well, the first corrugated cardboard box, which is still in use by many companies today, was created in around 1894. But if you look at the history of e-commerce, some personally believe that it was the Boston Computer Exchange in around 1982 where e-commerce began, which is about 40 years ago. And then Bookstacks Unlimited was created in 1992. This was about 30 years ago. And if you start to look at the actual growth of e-commerce as a percentage of overall retail, from within 12 years, it grew from 1% to 5%. And then within the following 9 years, it had grown a further 10% to 15%. So it's only in the last 20 years do we really have experience of e-commerce packaging. And it starts to put it into perspective of the bricks and mortar supply chain where the packaging has been developed over the past 120 years. So if you kind of want to put e-commerce packaging in a kind of age group, it's still very much in its infancy. So if we look at the evolution of e-commerce, many businesses were kind of in the learning and exploration stage in the beginning. They were using their kind of existing packaging from bricks and mortar. It was not tamper evident. It wasn't really supply chain efficient and effective. So the first steps were kind of damage prevention. So people moved into what you can see as well known as like the pizza style box or a FEFCO 0429. This kind of afforded a bit more kind of protection within the supply chain. It was kind of printed inside and gave a customer unboxing experience as well. And then some people started to evolve into channel-specific solutions like the Secure E-Pack, where it was 100% tamper-evident, more effective, and again could provide a better unboxing experience and use less fibre as it performed better in the supply chain. And then many people have started moving into omni-channel in recent years to gain more operational efficiencies. And it's a very difficult subject to achieve successfully because some products are quite difficult to actually use through the omni-channel supply chain. And then we head towards next generation. And I'll explain more of this further within the presentation. But they're circular solutions, more right-sized, more sustainable, and can offer things like personalization and connectivity as well, and use next generational materials. So we created a purpose for the business within 2019, and I don't think we could actually been any more on target with the topic of redefining packaging for a changing world. In the last 4 years, we've seen trends change significantly. So in 2019, it was all about the unboxing and customer experience. And then within 12 months, the global pandemic saw that just supply chain and just actually supplying the product to the customer during lockdowns was most important. And then in 2021, people started to see the amount of packaging that was actually in their homes and really began to question sustainability. And there was the COP summit as well that really highlighted this and brought it to most people's attention. And then in the beginning of this year, we were dealing with a number of customers and they were launching projects that looked like luxury or beauty, and everything was going quite well. And then in February, we had global events which changed everything. And now within the last 2 months, we've seen many, many customers start to focus heavily on cost reduction and optimization as well. So this leads us into what are people actually doing right now with cost reduction and optimization. So the tradition has always been to kind of look at material reduction, so lightening the kind of paperweight or the flute profile, reducing it, reducing the box size, increasing the packing speed, and production optimization. And this is all great. It does give shorter term results for incremental innovation. But there's an old saying that goes, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. You can only get so far by reducing the amount of fibre and reducing the box size. It's going to come to a certain point where you can't do this any further. And this is where we believe that next generation solutions will make a big difference. So one of our customers said to us that when we asked them about cost reduction, was sustainability not such a high priority, they actually said sustainability and cost reduction both work in harmony by reducing materials, the size and the waste. So Rakesh, over to you.
So that's the first part of Gavin's presentation. Are there any questions at all so far? I have a few. My first one is, you mentioned in your presentation the Boston Computer Exchange?
Yes.
1982?
1992.
Was it 92?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I thought you said 82. So that was about when e-commerce, you think, took off?
Well, they said that was some of the very, very first initiatives, not when it kind of grew and became mainstream. It was one of the very, very first initiatives, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so, and going straight into your presentation, what's the number one pain point for them as retailers right now?
I'd say cost, really. Cost is, cost and supply.
Because before the pandemic and before supply chain issues, us journalists at Packaging News and generally, it was all about sustainability prior to the pandemic. And I'm not saying it is anymore, but I've had discussions with yourself and with other people, others in the industry, with regards to operational costs, and I guess that's why, and that's what you've seen as well, that the number one issue is to, and get me, am I correct to say, when you want to reduce costs, you're talking about the material you're using as well as the energy you're using, etc. And everything. I guess that's all related.
Yeah, everything on a real granular level. We've seen the kind of interest before. It was just maybe material and a box size, but now it's become very granular. We're getting customer requests to understand about our manufacturing process and how they can collaborate with us internally to gain even greater efficiencies.
Right, because I was going to say, what actions are they taking, or what kind of demands are they making as your clients?
Everything from, first initially they say they just want to look at efficiencies and cost reduction. So we would offer kind of like a site visit and a pack-right review. So we would go to their site, understand how they operate, and then look for opportunities there, and then bring them into the business. And we work with the procurement teams, the innovation teams, and then look at opportunities. So we would recommend a number of proposals because it very much depends on, we can look at it from a packaging supplier and make recommendations, but there's obviously there's a kind of like time period for implementation versus cost and then return on these changes. So we have to offer kind of multiple kind of opportunity for optimization, and then allow them to see how they can integrate that as well.
Okay, and I guess this is all related to the. Does it actually come down as customers? Does it actually come down to how much is that per unit box costing me? Is it literally, we want it down by this amount of cents or pence?
They don't necessarily give an exact figure, but there's obviously expectations of how much they want to, be optimized by.
Right.
So they make that pretty clear, but not always necessarily an absolute figure.
Okay. Have we touched on this, the changes that they've experienced over the past 3 years? Because obviously, I put it into a little bit of context tonight when I said it was all about sustainability beforehand, whereas as the pandemic hit, they just wanted a box, didn't they?
Yeah,
they wanted to stay above water and maintain their business. And now you're saying that it's costs as well as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic, we saw there was obviously a lot of businesses that were kind of focused on bricks and mortar. So they had to quickly swap and create new packaging solutions. So there was a real kind of hive of innovation period, just literally to get the product to the people that were in lockdowns. But yeah, I'd say now particularly the last 3-4 months has always been about optimization and efficiency. But again, they see that working hand in hand with sustainability.
Okay. I'm going to add one more question. Supply chain issues were a huge deal last year, correct? We did speak about this earlier. That's not so much an issue now, is that right?
No, I don't think so. It's more, people are still talking about volumes and efficiencies of actually getting the product out from the retailers, but no, not supply chain issues.
And the current conflict in Ukraine, is that Just give us an idea of how is it affecting supplies, or is it affecting demands even? How is it impacting the sector?
With the customers I've spoken to particularly, there hasn't really been that much issues as of yet, but it's more the kind of how can I say it, kind of effects on sort of energy and
Right.
materials and things like that. They've seen the effect, but in a kind of more second-hand scenario.
Okay, I'm going to let you get on to your next session.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll keep talking.
Okay, so we understand that the corrugated box, as whether you call it an American box, an O201, or a six-sided box, the humble corrugated box has been around for over 100 years. And whenever we specified our packaging, or most customers have specified packaging, it's always been around the BCT value, the box compression testing figure. And what we mean by this is, so the box in the bottom corner that's highlighted it requires a stacking strength of over 50 kilograms, plus any additional safety factors, or if it's going to be double stacked in the pallets, etc. It's simplifying the equation a bit, but it's quite calculable. It's quite easy to calculate how much performance this box actually needs. And when we're talking about performance, the material cost for a box can be around about 50% of the overall price. So it's really important to understand how much performance you actually require out of the box. And it's important to remember you've got one flute direction, and this is vertical. This was what the box was created for. So it's quite easy to predict what performance needs you require, and also very, very clean in the stacking. So then we move on to why is there a need for change? And this is something that a lot of people in e-commerce will be a lot more clear on, is loose loading. So you've got around 50 boxes in this picture, and 50% of them are actually on their side. So you've just lost 50% of the performance you've just paid for instantly, as it's just been turned over. Also, there's probably void fill, and you don't know what's within inside those packs. So you could have 20, 30 kilos stacking on a box on its side. So this is why adapted solutions aren't necessarily the way forward for the future of e-commerce, because they were not created for this, and it doesn't offer the optimal performance. So before we start talking about what we're actually doing with next generation solutions, I wanted to kind of explain what my understanding of next generation is. So I looked into the diary, and into the dictionary, and it actually said it's the latest or forthcoming stage in development. But there's a lot of mentions over succeeding generations, and if you take this into context and you think about the phone, for 100 years or more, we had the home phone where it was connected to a wire, and then we had the mobile phone came along, and it gave us freedom. We could actually we could talk on the move, or we could text or message. And then if you think about the smartphones we have today, right now, you can use them as a camera, as video. They've got email, the internet. You can do your banking, everything. And this is really how next generation kind of technology works, and what we're embracing here within the packaging industry. So we're really challenging, and we're taking this back to a clean sheet kind of concept, and not just accepting that we need to carry on working in the same traditional ways. I'll let you carry on.
Okay. My first question, you've mentioned telephones and then mobiles, and whatever comes next. So where are we with corrugated packaging? Are we still at the landline telephone stage, or have we got to the mobile stage? And have we got to the data stage? I
think we're kind of maybe the hands-free landline at home. We're definitely not fully mobile yet in packaging. I think there's some really exciting things on the horizon. There's definitely a lot of opportunities, and especially with the way the e-commerce supply chain is growing, and it really is now the generation of I want my delivery where I want it, how I want it, when I want it. It's much more complex, and there's much more opportunities.
Okay, so at the start of this session, this second session, sorry, you were talking about how the box has to perform. So your customers, how do they what criteria do they have? Do they do the traditional BCT criteria, or have they got demands from their own clients? How does it work? Or what's happening currently on that?
There's a lot of development within the supply chain sort of testing and certification. Obviously, Amazon have got their ISTA 6 and their own certification process, and there is the ISTA 3A for the general public. But most people that we've spoken to over the last 2 to 3 years are still using BCT as a performance criteria. However, we were speaking with a European retailer recently, and they'd actually had in their innovation team a ex-corrugated designer. So they started to question whether BCT is the right element, and people are starting to really investigate now over the supply chain performance and the real needs of the packaging.
Okay. I mean, just following up on that is the final decision. Is it heavily dictated by their customers as well? Is it channel specific, or I guess it all varies? And what would lead them to invest in next generation packaging?
I think it's very much customer driven. If you take Amazon's certification criteria, the pass or fail measure is actually led by the vendor. Right. So that's which is then by their customer. So they have to say, if you take something like Lego, for example, like Lego city sets are sent through SIOC in Amazon, so they just stick a label on them, sent straight out the door. The customer doesn't mind if there's a crease or a kind of a small mark or damage on the pack. They're quite happy with that. The expectation is met. But if you sent out like a Lego collector's edition, like the Star Wars one's like 15 kilos and 6,000 pieces, it's about 600 euros. If it's got one mark on it, people are actually buying two, one to kind of collect and keep immaculate, and one to build. So it really depends on the product, the customer expectations, but the customers do set the criteria for pass or fail, really.
Okay. Unboxing and the unboxing experience, where you've ordered a new phone, or you've received a really nice present, or you think it's nice until you've opened it. But the unboxing experience for the customer, and obviously it goes back the chain to the brand, to the packaging supplier, and to DS Smith themselves and the likes. Is that a huge deal still? Because I know we've been talking about costs and we've been talking about sustainability for years. Where does the unboxing experience for the end user sit now as compared to, say, 5 years ago?
I think the unboxing experience, comparing it to 5 years ago, it was probably the number one hot topic. Everybody was looking for inside print, different kind of creative measures to either present the product, etc. But we started to see that in around 2019, especially like you said in 2020 when the pandemic struck, then everything went to just supply. And the unboxing experience has not been lost, but it's actually become like an integral part of any innovation within e-commerce packaging. So it's become more of a kind of foundation part of the packaging rather than a trend now. So it's not been lost, but I don't think it overtakes the priorities of sustainability. So people won't create a better unboxing experience at the cost of sustainability and also the price point. They're still the two hottest topics at the moment.
Okay. And the question, another one I had was packaging rage by end users, where and you see it on YouTube, maybe not so much now, but you've got a pen and you've got a box this size sometimes. What's the latest on that? As you've seen in the industry, I guess it comes back to, I guess it's related to cutting costs and using less material. So maybe the boxes are getting smaller. Are they getting smaller? And I guess you still got a lot of way to go, not just DS Smith, but the sector as a whole. I
think one of the biggest issues is Amazon always get quite slammed for this, for like oversizing something. But when you consider how many billions of parcels they ship per year, and sometimes it's down to the vendor. I've seen the classic example online is the dog lead, which is 60 centimeters long, and it's been put in as a length 60 centimeters. So it takes a 60 centimeter box by about 40 centimeters, and I know that's being addressed because it is significant problems, and that's the information that's being provided to the retailer. But overall, I think the situations of this year will drive people to focus much more closely on right-sizing, re-evaluating their kind of box suites to ensure that they're more efficient and more optimal. Absolutely. It's definitely a key point at the moment. Some of the main customers we're speaking to right now are already questioning, do they need their boxes to be this size, and can they be more optimal?
And I guess, like I said, and it's not entirely to end or reduce the pack range. It's actually related to reducing material costs and all the rest of it as well, sustainability as well. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. One other question on this session is it difficult, and why is it difficult to predict performance needs in the e-commerce supply chain?
Well, I think the first part is the complexity of it. I mean, I've spent a number of cold mornings in the couriers in the UK to see 100 vans come flying in, and then like 30 or 50,000 parcels going through. Each depot has different machinery, and if you take it, the amount of sheer volume of parcels that we're shipping now, the kind of actual process itself hasn't changed over the last 10, 15, 20 years. You still have a person with a van delivering. There's much more pressure on them. Before the pandemic, the couriers were doing maybe 120 parcels a day. Speaking to some of them during the pandemic, they were over normal peak. They were up to 200, 220. So there isn't the time to kind of take that much care of the parcels. And now what people are shipping as well. Years ago on e-commerce, it was maybe a book, a DVD, things like that. Now you can get a garden shed. You can get anything, pretty much via e-commerce. So it depends on. Is it being like click and collect? Is it direct to home? There's so many different channels, so many different equipment. It's very unpredictable.
I'm going to add one more question actually there. I think, and you can confirm this, definitely during the pandemic, because everyone was increasingly using the internet to buy their goods when they're stuck at home, and it became more prevalent to demand next day and then same day delivery. Mm-hmm. Is that going to become a norm, or has it already become a norm? Number one, and did DS Smith and your peers as well have to drastically pivot some parts of your operation to cater for that?
I think we already have a good relationship with our customers, in the sense of the large scale e-commerce customers we deal with, we already have specific stocking and agreements and everything, and very much understanding their kind of forward needs. So we work very closely with them to ensure that there isn't those kind of problems. But I think overall, during the pandemic, I'm quite a prolific online shopper myself, and there was also a number of times when the next day was actually like 2 days. It was the first time ever I'd seen like Amazon were not doing next day. There has been a change, and I think the expectations of the consumer as well is they're a little bit slightly more relaxed on it now. It was very much going to next day, but even same day. There was some Amazon that were doing same day within the UK, etc. But for us, no, it's not really been an issue with supply.
Okay. Shall we move on to your final part of your presentation?
Okay. So as we can move now into next generation and what we're actually working on. So I mentioned earlier about our steps and our progress. So the process we created was an innovation management process. And what I mean by this is, rather than sales speaking to procurement, we wanted to understand much more about where did the customer see themselves in 5 years' time. So we wanted to understand much more detail about their roadmap, where they were heading, and their pain points as well. So our design team started speaking to the innovation teams and the creatives within these customers, and we started to get a much clearer picture of not what they needed right now, which was more the procurement speaking to the sales teams. It's about us being much more proactive. So what could we actually start now that were going to be problems of the future? So then once we had these kind of problems and understanding, we started doing research and innovation. So for the past 6 years, we have invested and built 2 of our own purpose-built e-commerce disk testing laboratories. And we also have a UK ISTA 6 approved laboratory as well. So over the past 6 years, we've been continuously taking insights into the supply chain and researching and working with couriers as well, so that we can understand in more detail what actually happens within those complexities. And we also created a purpose. So we created an innovation roadmap so that we could focus our teams and be much more structured on creating an innovation which had needs. There's been a lot of great innovations in the past, but they didn't always kind of hit the pain points for the customer. So there needs to be a real purpose. And when we talk about performance, I mentioned earlier that we've built our own e-commerce laboratories. We're actually heavily investing in a new facility in the UK called R8. And this is a custom-built facility where we'll be able to test and prototype machines, and it'll be one of the biggest packaging testing laboratories within the UK and possibly Europe as well. So we've created a process and understanding, and we're generating these insights to really work closely with the customer and understand what the next generation of packaging requires. And as we were just kind of talking about, most of the customers I ever speak to, or friends or colleagues, etc., when you talk about e-commerce, people have this perception of they click, then one person picks it, packs it, and it goes into this van and it's straight at your front doorstep. Whereas actually, there is numerous touch points and lots of different opportunities for damage and things to happen in the supply chain. So the reality is it's much, much more complex than people think. And as we were discussing earlier, there's lots of different routes, lots of different opportunities for things to happen. So how do you create performance packaging for that? So we've been working with external suppliers, and we're actually working on a customized tracking system right now, because the initial trackers that were available had 1 minute intervals of collection. And if you go into a supply chain sort of fulfillment hub or with the couriers, the parcel can actually be sorted within 3 minutes. So within those 3 minutes, a lot can happen. So we're trying to now develop trackers which pick up within seconds, and we can understand exactly which is the orientation of the parcel, how it was hit, and in which phases, etc. So we're working very closely with external suppliers to understand this in much greater detail. Automation is also a real critical point moving forward in next generation, as we've highlighted earlier about sustainability and costs. So right sizing and hybrid solutions will be part of the future. But one thing I wanted to pick up on was semi or fully automated solutions, because everybody thinks that full automation will bring huge cost reductions and opportunities. But however, when we worked on this innovation management with a customer recently, he actually highlighted that it would be impossible for them to have enough machines. They would need about 18 machines at peak within their facility, and the space was just too much. So they were actually more looking towards semi-automation. And so we looked at a whole new opportunity to work with them and create a kind of semi-automated pack bench that could help them with their needs. So by sitting back and being just a packaging supplier, we would have just thought full automation would have been the way to go for them. But this new innovation management actually gives us new customer insights we've never had before, and really creates some great opportunities for us. And then the big questions are whether it's kind of like blank fed or fan fold, and then obviously pack on demand as well. So whilst right sizing is great for sustainability, for automated solutions, again, it's very complex, and it really needs to understand the customer's product. Is it kind of fragile, non-fragile? Are they doing like multi-orders or singles, etc.? So one size definitely doesn't fit all within automation. And this is one of the real kind of, I think, exciting bits for us within the packaging world. We're working on a next generational kind of material specifically for e-commerce, and this is where I said we're challenging and going right back to the kind of blank sheet idea. So we just done about 300 tests in our laboratory recently. And remember that we were talking about the cost of a box is about 50% of the price. So we took an existing material that was about 305 grams per square meter, and it failed after 4 drop tests. We had a single wall box, and we had 9 kilos in it, and we just continuously dropped it, and it failed after 4 drops. This new material that we've just been working on is actually nearly 15% lighter, so it's actually more sustainable, but at a 325% improvement in performance. So the most important thing there was it still didn't fail even after 17 drops. We just literally gave up because we couldn't actually break it open. So this could create opportunities for either reusing the cases or even, again, more significant lightweighting. Do we really need a 300% improvement? We could take it to about 100% or 200% and then drastically reduce the material. So there's some real opportunities right here now. And the best thing about this is it can be applied to any box. It doesn't have to be just a normal 6-sided square box. And then in harmony with this kind of next generational concept, we're actually working on some new designs where we've gone back to basics right again. We've questioned everything. So if you take a regular kind of pizza box style, it actually uses, in the combination of 300 by 200 by 100, about half a square meter, and it has 27, nearly 28% waste. This next generational solution we've just created, I'd like to have shown it today, but we're in the process of patenting it. And it's 0.4 of a square meter, so it reduces the material by 20%. It's 73% less waste. We can actually produce it in our sites 20% faster. It's fully tamper evident, and we have initial indications that it's even increased supply chain performance. So if you combine these two products together, which is the next generational material and the next generational design, there's a huge, huge opportunity at the moment to increase sustainability and reduce costs by challenging everything we know. Okay, Rakesh?
Okay, so my first question is, you're talking about next generation packaging, essentially. How much interest is there from your customers?
Okay, I think this is the first presentation of next generation, so it's very, very new. We've only just kind of brought it to the market. But the thing is, the question is from our customers of increased sustainability and more cost effectiveness and optimization. So it really is answering the question of what do the customer need, we feel.
Okay. Are they proactively innovating and collaborating with their suppliers on this? Have they got a vision for the next few years, for the next 5 years?
Well, one specific customer account that I'm managing the innovation with, absolutely. We sat down with them and we connected with their innovation teams, talked about all the current projects, and we had a session recently with their head of innovation, and we agreed an agenda understanding their pain points of where they want to be within the next 5 years, and now we're setting up a program of how to work with them, so that specific teams can work with them on automation. They haven't seen the next generational designs, which will be presented to them next month. So, yeah.
Okay. So it's relatively in its infancy. You're just hoping that with the launch of, you said you got patents coming up, is that right?
Yes.
With the launch of that, you're hoping, obviously, that it's going to generate more interest.
It will generate awareness of what we're trying to achieve with next generational.
Okay. Can you provide more information about the history and what led you to this concept of next generation e-commerce packaging?
Very good question. I've been a packaging designer for 27 years now, and spent a lot of time outside of the office. I think it was spending time at fulfillment centres, customer fulfillment centres, and with the couriers. I started to spot opportunities of the packaging, how it was failing, and starting to understand how the equipment was kind of creating the product to fail. And it gave me lots of insights, and then really made me question, why we need to be different.
Right. Okay. Questions, please. Is there mics?
Have we got any interaction here? Can we hear?
Hi, over here.
Hey.
I think you've talked a lot so far about secondary packaging, right? And
yes.
about packaging where the route to market is very clear, like through the e-com channel. Mm-hmm. In terms of like branded manufacturers and primary packaging, where it's not always clear if it's going to go into e-com or if it's going to go into brick and mortar, what kind of like strategies are you seeing that they're taking around packaging development?
That's a very good question. I think it's the problem they've got is got a very established market. So if you take someone who's a global kind of supplier of food products or something like that, and they want to go to omni-channel, sometimes the primary can be, how can I say, designed to fail in a way for e-commerce. One of the things we found recently was actually metal cans, metal tins, and we did some drop testing. They wanted Amazon certification, and out of everything, they were the worst product. As soon as you dropped them, the bottom of the tins punched out, they looked horrible, they looked like they'd been kicked around. But this global manufacturer we were collaborating with them and working with them, and they took another tin from another process that had a different base. And so we did some more testing for them. We found out it was about 50% more effective. So I think people are kind of recognizing it and working on the primaries, but it is very much depends on the retailer themselves and the people that are producing, because their production lines are geared to their predominant part of the business, like bricks and mortar. So for some of them, they have to take it offline, and they're kind of doing a separate kind of production or something like that. Whereas some people are trying to be more proactive, either redesigning the primary to kind of work in harmony and then be more effective in omni-channel. I think it's very much in the exploration stage at the moment. A lot of people are still trying to find their way. And one of the things we're trying to work on, you've seen some kind of mention of next generational materials, but we've actually got some kind of projects in the pipeline for the next 3-4 years of development, which would actually affect kind of primary materials and make them more effective for omni-channel. So we're trying to support people to actually transition to omni-channel. Okay.
Hi, my name is Brian from Wentronic. I have a question related to your sustainability of your new materials. Is that fully recyclable? Is it still corrugate, or is there some mix and match of bamboo, other fibers?
It's still a paper fiber. It's we call it next generational, but for me it's like the first step. So this is available right now. We've run it on our corrugators. It's still fiber, still 100% curbside recyclable.
Second question related to that. With Europe trying to go more green, carbon neutral, in that mindset, do you see a requirement coming for all, maybe first and second layer packaging, to be FSC certified, and constraints in the global market for legit FSC certified material?
I mean, it's a good question, and probably that's for our sustainability team, in all honesty. I mean, my role as a designer is to literally optimize materials, kind of a performance, and try and take out as much there as possible. The sustainability team and our kind of our R&D team would be the real perfect people to answer that. Sorry.
Any more questions? I just want a show of hands here. As we started the presentation, Gavin was saying that costs has become the biggest deal, certainly this year. So is priority costs for everybody here? If you put your hands up, what's the most important thing in your business? Is it the cost, or is it sustainability, or is it getting the exact design of the pack right? So cost, okay, and sustainability? It's about the same? Okay, thanks. Okay, I've got a couple of questions. You're talking about Dropbox, and that you dropped this item 17 times or 70 times?
17.
Okay. Do you ever drop a box with an egg in it?
Yeah, we did that, deliver live so many years ago, yeah.
And you still do that?
Not necessary now, no. We
okay. What do you test it with then? Is it different products depending on what the box is being made for?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most strangest products and difficult to design for is actually chocolate. Right. It's glass is significantly difficult, obviously, like fragility, but chocolate can be incredibly difficult because not only is it fragile, but you've got temperature sensitivity and everything. So chocolate's a really good one if you want to test a product for fragility. But generally we use salt for cleaning up. It's easy, and getting a heavy weight. So yeah, mostly salt.
Okay. Another question is slightly off topic. What's the weirdest thing you've seen being packaged in a corrugated box?
Weirdest? Oh my goodness. No.
Or one of the?
Very good question. I don't know, out of 27 years, so many things. I've seen like glass vases trying to be packed, like not just a normal glass vase, but like really delicate ones with kind of components coming out of them and everything. That's probably one of the trickiest and hardest, but I think, being in the courier supply chain, I've seen things like tractor motors just being sent raw and things like that with no packaging. So,
right.
Anything and everything. We've packed 6-foot snooker tables through to, 18 bottles of wine.
So to go along with that, I was going to say, what's the biggest thing you've seen packaged in a corrugated box? I've seen bicycles, which are not huge, but
they're awkward, really awkward handling. But no, snooker tables was the hardest. They were like 50 kilos, and the biggest problem was they used to drop them off the back of the truck and smash the pockets off the bottom. So I think
as part of your test, or because they were not good couriers?
Not good couriers. Okay. No, snooker tables probably the biggest and hardest to move.
Okay. Just one or two more from me, and then we'll ask the audience again before we wrap up. Essentially, it's a brown box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we look at corrugated packaging, we just think it's a brand box. And obviously there are developments, there's always developments over the years on materials and the structure and all the rest of it. Great developments. Before the pandemic, it was quite, from what I saw, there was obviously a trend to print on the box and print in color and have a nicer finish, etc. Is that going to come back? Because I kind of saw less and less of that during the pandemic.
I think.
And then and to go along with that is, what will the box look like in 5 years' time? Will it look the same?
I think for the first part of the question, the colour has a lot to do with sustainability as well. We've seen kind of one particular customer, a very large retailer in Europe, has changed all their packaging from white to brown for the perception of kind of sustainability, environmental. Right. So there is a lot to do with that, because the perception is lots of colour, gloss and varnishes, etc., harder to recycle. So we have seen a lot of people go more natural, I think.
Okay. What was my second part of my question? There was another part to that. Oh, what's it going to look like in 5 years?
What's it going to look like? That's a very good question. I think the biggest problem is that the box still will probably look like six-sided, and that's the biggest trick, that what we're developing will still look the same, essentially, as a six-sided box, because it needs to transit on conveyors, it needs to be able to stack, it still needs to be able to perform the same, but it needs to be completely different in its engineering and structure. So it will look the same, but it will be completely different.
Okay. Any more questions from anybody? No?
Okay.
Okay, we'll wrap that up. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. He's going to wrap it up, sorry. Gavin's going to wrap it up.
So to summarise and answer the two key questions of the presentation, what is next generation packaging? It's actually holistic solutions. So we're not talking about just a design here or a new material. It's actually something that's an end-to-end supply chain performance. It will need to be really high performance to answer the kind of critical questions of, you raised your hands on sustainability and cost. So we see these as absolute priorities. Minimal material, it'll be industry leading, and it will challenge everything. And as I said earlier, clean sheet innovation. And why do you need this next generation? Because incremental innovation of what's happening now, by just keep changing adapted solutions, as I shown earlier about the performance in the supply chain, we need to create greater sustainability, enhance customer experience, and obviously cost optimization. So I hope that's given you some insights today, and within the next sort of 6 to 12 months, you'll be able to see some of the work that we've been creating in next generation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.